more than we should be. I don't know, maybe it is, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, you introduced me to the idea that there are like two types of writers. There's the pantsers and there are the plotters.
Mm-hmm.
And so today we're going to look a little bit more into those two types, and then we will let you know which type we think we are. But first, how about you go ahead and explain those two types to us?
And the two types is often how I see it described in many of the conversations that I'm seeing online, where pantsers are those who write from the seat of their pants, and plotters are those that plot out all the details of the story before they begin writing.
Yes, pantsers writing by the seat of their pants. When you first introduced it to me and you said pantsers, I was like, how is pantsers spelled? And you were like, oh, the way that you would think it's spelled. And I was like, P-A-N-C-E-R-S. What does that even mean? Yes, right by the seat of their pants.
Yes.
That type of pantser.
And as I have looked at it a little more, I'm less attached to the idea of two types of writers, and maybe it's more like two types of writing. And I think we fall on a spectrum. Different writers will fall on a spectrum, pantsing on one side and plotting on the other. And I also think that we may move from one end of the spectrum to another at different times.
Yeah, I think there are some key differences in pantsing and plotting and kind of their focus.
Okay.
It seems like, to me at least, pantsing is much more character focused and plotting is much more, well, plot focused.
Okay. Like, explain, say more about that.
Okay, so when you're plotting, you're taking the time to figure out a large part of your story ahead of time, and you're putting in all this work to make sure that you have a cohesive plot before you even get down to start writing. Whereas a lot of the pantsers say that what they do is they'll have a general idea of their plot, but not a lot of the specifics, and they'll know their characters really well, and then they'll basically just like put all that together and put all their characters together, the basic outline of their plot, and then just let the characters do what's natural to them as they're writing it out. But one of the pitfalls of pantsing is that you can sometimes fall into world building pits where you're partway through your story and you just fall and you don't know how to answer this world building question because you didn't take the time to answer that beforehand. And I think that is one of the reasons that plotting and pantsing work better for different genres of writing. And so science fiction, like what we're writing, seems much more plot heavy, and especially there's often a lot of world building of how these specific scientific things work. And so you need to figure that out ahead of time before you start writing. Whereas something like a romance novel, there's often not a whole lot of world building, but there's a lot of character development that needs to go on. And that, just figuring out your characters, what their desires are, how they interact with each other, then you can a whole lot more easily fly by the seat of your pants and write that much more effectively than you could, say, a science fiction book.
And I like the world building example, especially in science fiction. I'm imagining that somebody writing a romance novel set present day in the town where the writer lives, they don't have to invent a lot. They just write based on what they already know, and it can flow.
There's not going to be those, I don't know what to do with the world building here. What type of world? You just look outside, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. And in what we're doing, I'm finding that I'm vacillating back and forth between we really need to figure out, as I've used before, how these bones fit together into a plot so that we understand why does this thing have to happen in the history of this world. We're figuring out the history of the world that we're exploring. Then I think and hope we'll have a chance to be more pantsery,
something like that.
to be able to move into just spend more time on the character development. And it may be true that right now we're focusing a little too much, or I say too much. We're focusing very much on plotting, getting that world defined, and are we spending too much time on it? Is it more than we should be? I don't know. Maybe it is, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think it's, especially since this is our first time writing a book, we're going to have to figure out which way works best for us, and there's going to be some aspects of each. And even with these videos that we're doing, there's some aspects of each. We were figuring out kind of the rough outline of what we wanted to say, and we have a few bullet points that we wanted to make sure that we hit. And so we're plotting a little bit, and we're making sure that it's a cohesive video. But beyond those bullet points, we're pantsing through this video.
And I think that's good experience and practice for us in what we're going to have to do in creating the story. Already, that vacillating, already I have felt the draw to just start writing. Hence the video
Video 9, I think it was.
Video 9 it was, where I just felt like I just need to write about something, even if it's a character that doesn't survive, if it's somebody who's not even going to be in the final story.
Right.
Let me just start writing. And that was something that I just felt drawn to do, even in life in general. I find that I can spend an awful lot of time just attached to the process. And am I following the process rigidly until, okay, enough with the process? I've just got to explore, be free and try things, experiment, do something that may fail and see what I can learn from it.
I think when it comes to writing, I also kind of go back and forth on the plotter versus pantser. In this project so far, I think I'm definitely more plotter. Mm-hmm. But back in high school, before I even started writing the book that would become the seed to what we're writing now, for writing projects, I would write paragraphs as if they were segments of a much larger novel. Like, I would have a character and have this hero's journey, basically, that he was going on, but I only wrote down this paragraph of it, and I didn't really know anything that came before or after it, but I just sat down and I pantsed that paragraph right there as part of a story. And I think that type of writing is going to be helpful when we get past the big plot and are writing the individual scenes and being able to pants those and go with the flow, because we don't want to be so heavily plotted that once we get to writing, things don't seem to flow naturally. And I think pantsing can help us write things that flow better, and plotting can help us write things that are cohesive as a larger story.
And I also think it can still be true. Back to the very beginning, you talked about two different types. Mm-hmm. I think it can be true that there are different types of authors who may lean or who may excel more in pantsing versus plotting, and they lean on those strengths to serve them better. I think that can be true.
Right. So to answer our question at the beginning of the video, which are we? Yes.
Yes.
We're both. Depends on the time in the process where we're at, depends on what exactly we're trying to work on at the time. So we're both. And
I think it may also, we may learn more about what pantsing and plotting actually are as we go through it as well.
And maybe after we finish this book, we may decide that we want to be more pantsers or we want to be more plotters than we currently are. So our question for you, though, is, do you see yourself as more of a pantser or more of a plotter? And if, like us, you're kind of both, what situations are you a pantser and what situations are you a plotter? Let us know down in the comments below, and we will see you next week.